Kitei is on a mission from his boss to deliver a mysterious briefcase to a person named Yuji for this flight to Japan. He's traveling under a completely new identity, a businessman named Kenji. As he settles into his seat on his way to Fukuoka, he suddenly senses that something is very wrong. Using his razor-sharp instincts, Kitei focuses his attention on several suspicious men dressed in black on the plane. Not long after takeoff, the men he suspected began their move. The ringleader charges straight for the cockpit, while his henchmen pull out blades to threaten and suppress the passengers. With a knife held to his throat, Kitei stays dead quiet. He's analyzing their every move with extreme precision. He realizes this isn't just a typical hijacking. It's a high-stakes political incident. Just as he expected, news of the situation reached the ground in no time. Government leaders are now in a total panic, scrambling to hold emergency meetings. Everyone has a different opinion on how to handle the case as quickly as possible while keeping the civilians safe. Up in the air, the Revolutionary Army is threatening the captain, forcing him to constantly change course. Luckily, the captain is a seasoned pro. He skillfully handles the situation by telling the revolutionaries that they must land to refuel. Otherwise, the entire group is going to meet their maker. With so many lives in his hands, the leader of the revolution is forced to agree to land at the nearest airport. As soon as the wheels touch the ground, the plane is immediately surrounded by a massive crowd. A young man approaches the terrorists to hand over a file and attempt to negotiate a compromise. One of the hijackers scans the surroundings and realizes something is off. He grabs a flight attendant to use as a shield, threatening her while demanding an immediate refueling so the flight can continue. Meanwhile, inside the cabin, a small brawl breaks out. One passenger, paralyzed by fear, tries to make a run for it, but unfortunately, he's caught by one of the hijackers. The hijacker holds a sword to the man's neck, intending to execute him in front of everyone to set an example. But suddenly, Kitei intervenes. He grabs one of the henchmen by the throat, threatening that if they don't respect the safety of the passengers, he will take him out. Not only that, but Kitei boldly demands a private meeting with the ringleader. The man's courage is truly on another level. The leader finally emerges from the cockpit, sword in hand, slowly walking toward Kitei. Facing him head-on, Kitei sets a condition: release the women, the elderly, and the children. Then, he opens the briefcase his boss gave him, allowing the leader to get a good look at what's inside. After staring at the contents for a moment, the leader's expression changes drastically. Kitei adds, "I'm the only one who can actually help you achieve your revolution. Take this chance and trust me." Following those words, a deal is struck. The women, the elderly, and the children are released from the plane in complete safety. Once the release is finished, the plane is refueled. The hijackers are ecstatic when they receive word that the flight is cleared to head straight for Pyongyang. The leader and Kitei sit down together, and the leader begins firing off questions, wanting to know who Kitei really is and how he could be so incredibly brave. Kitei remains perfectly calm. He coolly responds that he is just an ordinary businessman, and that for now, he is officially on the same side as the hijackers. After their conversation, the ringleader rushes back to the cockpit to begin the takeoff, heading for Pyongyang from a South Korean airport. Meanwhile, the military has already sprung into action. In this particular operation, Sergeant ECO receives a personal phone call from the director with a stern reminder. The director wants ECO to take total control of the situation at any cost and ensure that the plane never actually makes it to Pyongyang. As the hijacked aircraft enters their airspace, Sergeant ECO gets to work. A high-stakes battle of wits begins to unfold between the two sides. Eventually, both parties reach a mutual decision, confirming a landing at Pyongyang Airport. But here's the twist. The South Korean military has gone into full gear, disguising itself as a massive force of North Korean soldiers. They are strictly briefed that, from this moment on, the ground they stand on must be treated as Pyongyang. Sitting in the cabin, Kitei overhears just enough to realize that this is a double-cross. The hijackers are walking straight into a sophisticated trap set by South Korea. As soon as the plane touches down, you'd think the gang would be ecstatic to jump out. However, the leader is as sharp as a fox. He immediately senses that something is off. He and his henchmen poke their heads out to double-check their surroundings. Realizing they've been played, he furiously drags the captain out to execute him for the deception. Just as he's about to kill the poor pilot, Kitei intervenes. He warns them that if they kill him now, there won't be anyone left to fly the plane. This logic snaps the hijackers back to reality, and they spare the captain's life. The group stays barricaded on the plane until nightfall. As the air in the cabin grows thin and cold, the hijackers finally surround Kitei. They pull out his suitcase filled with drugs and brazenly open it right in front of his face. Seizing the perfect opening, Kitei lunges forward and takes on the entire group. In the blink of an eye, he wipes them out, ending the leader with a single bullet. Realizing he's completely outmatched, one of the remaining hijackers reveals he's wearing a suicide vest and threatens to blow everyone to Kingdom Come. Remaining stone-cold calm, Kite shows that he isn't afraid of anyone. He walks straight toward the man and dares him to hit the detonator. Having completely seized control of the situation, Kite forces the hijackers to submit to his will. At the same time, he dictates his own terms to Sergeant Isio. By the following morning, the South Korean military is able to evacuate every single hostage in total safety. Afterward, the plane is sent back to Japan, and the North Korean revolutionaries are sent back to exactly where they wanted to go. The person who gets the short end of the stick in all of this is Sergeant Isio. Despite being the mastermind who diverted the plane to save the civilians, he is forced to stay silent and can't say a word about his heroics. Following the hijacking, Japanese airports are forced to ramp up security to ensure a disaster like this never happens a second time. With the accidental chaos finally settled, Kite finally has time to handle his own business. He meets up with Yuji to deliver the goods. Even though the merchandise is gone, he uses his expert negotiation skills and his silver tongue to successfully pacify the lady and ensure his own safety. Meanwhile, Gun-young arrives at the office, pedaling his bicycle as fast as he can. He immediately dives into an investigation of these drug traffickers. He uncovers a photo of a powerful gang boss bowing deeply to a mysterious figure. Despite tracking this crew for a long time, Gun-young still hasn't quite figured out what their ultimate play is. The sight of this mysterious stranger, whom even the big boss bowed to, is giving Gun-young a massive headache. As it turns out, the person receiving that bow is none other than Kite. Right now, Kite is arriving at a top-secret location, hidden away and guarded by heavy security. But don't let the glitzy exterior fool you. Inside, this place is nothing short of a living hell. From every room, the agonizing screams of people being tortured echo through the halls. Kite walks straight in, looking like he's been here 1,000 times before, to meet a certain man. Usually, Kite carries himself like the ultimate alpha, but in front of this man, he becomes completely submissive. Turns out, this big boss is the real puppet master pulling all the strings. In fact, the entire hijacking incident on the plane was orchestrated by this man. Kite was simply following his orders. However, there's a deeper layer to this. Kite, who is actually the chief of intelligence, is working undercover beneath this villain. He's maintaining his cover, waiting for the perfect moment to cast a wide net and take down the entire operation in one go. Meanwhile, Mr. Kim and his wife are having a quiet family dinner on a peaceful night. While listening to the news, Mr. Kim can't stop ranting about how the world is falling apart and becoming more unstable by the day. His wife, who can barely even swallow her food, gets annoyed by her husband's constant complaining about bad luck, leading to a heated argument. Suddenly, a thunderous knock at the door shatters the warm family atmosphere. Even though it's late at night, two Americans are seen acting incredibly sketchy right outside their doorstep. "We're heading back to America soon. Please just give it to me, and I'll pay you double." The shady conversation between Mr. Kim and these two men suggests something dark is going on. But at the mention of double the money, Mr. Kim gives in and lets them inside. Seeing the two foreigners makes the wife feel extremely uneasy, but Mr. Kim works hard to convince her that the price they're offering is worth it. Reluctantly, she agrees. She goes straight into the bedroom, grabs something out of the safe, and brings it out to them. But the moment the two Americans get their hands on the item, they cold-bloodedly murder the couple on the spot. It doesn't take long for the police to get word of the incident and swarm the crime scene. Inspector Gun-young walks through the door and is absolutely horrified by the scene before his eyes. The sight is so gruesome that other officers can't even stomach it and start vomiting. According to Gun-young's assistant, we learn that this couple was actually drug dealers. As it turns out, those American soldiers were addicts hooked on the white powder, and they brutally slaughtered the couple to get their fix. Even though the couple were criminals, they only did it to provide for their young daughter and the unborn child still in the mother's womb, an exchange that ultimately cost them their lives. Left behind is an innocent little girl who doesn't even understand what happened to her parents. Gun-young has no choice but to take the girl with him because she has absolutely no one left in this world. He can only pray that God will help her overcome this devastating loss. In a world of cold shoulders, Gun-young is the only one who refuses to turn his back on this helpless child. Gun-young is a man of integrity, and he refuses to turn a blind eye to the ruthless crimes committed by the Americans. He cannot accept the way they casually commit atrocities on his own soil. "Don't be so rigid, you need to be more flexible," his superior constantly reminds him, urging him to just ignore these cases. To his boss, climbing the ladder as fast as possible is the only way to gain wealth and fame. But even if it means staying stuck in his low-ranking position forever, Gun-young doesn't give a damn about what his boss says. He continues his own investigation, determined to find justice for the people of South Korea. This bold move puts Gun-young right in the crosshairs of other powerful and corrupt officials. Ki-tae is also following orders from his superior to dig up everything on Gun-young. Using his high-level connections, Ki-tae tasks the intelligence agency with investigating every detail of Gun-young's life. His family, his wife, his children, and every single relationship he has. Meanwhile, Gun-young is still laser-focused on his own investigation. Following a clue the late husband left behind in a newspaper, he heads straight to the U.S. military barracks to dig for information, but the American soldiers there flat-out refuse to cooperate. Furious, Gun-young puts the squeeze on these Americans. He demands they confess. Who did the husband contact on the night he was murdered? He threatens them, saying that if they don't talk, they'll spend the rest of their lives rotting in a prison cell for what they've done. With one side speaking English and the other speaking Korean, nobody understands a word anyone is saying. Fortunately, a black soldier who knows Korean steps in and agrees to meet Gun-young the next day. The soldier relays exactly what the husband said. This turns out to be a massive clue in the case to catch the mastermind behind the drug operation. Gun-young immediately rounds up his team to go undercover, posing as the deceased couple to show up at the meeting spot. However, the female officer playing the wife isn't exactly thrilled about having any of the short and ugly guys in the office play her husband. She shoots a flirty look at the handsome Gun-young, making it clear she wants him to play house with her. As they follow the mysterious contact's instructions, the officer, Yee-jin, is a nervous wreck. Gun-young tries his best to encourage her, fearing she might accidentally blow their cover. She eventually asks, "Can I ask you something? Are you always this handsome?" Turns out, Yee-jin only stutters when she's around good-looking men. She gathers her courage to tease Gun-young with some cheesy lines, but Gun-young is totally clueless and doesn't realize this beautiful girl is flirting with him. He just stands there with a blank, confused stare, leaving Yee-jin feeling so embarrassed she wishes she could disappear into thin air. Soon after, they reach the rendezvous point specified by the mysterious contact. Even though their fake couple act is so obvious that anyone could see through it, somehow it works on the drug dealers. A man emerges from the shadows and signals for them to get into a car. The drug deal begins right there inside the vehicle. Gun-young flashes a thick stack of cash to get the man to hand over the drugs. But in a stroke of terrible luck, the radio suddenly starts broadcasting news about the murder of the real Kim couple. "Wait, who the hell are you two?" The dealer snaps, immediately realizing they aren't the real Kims. Seeing that their cover is blown, Gun-young actually bursts out laughing. Showing zero fear, he leans forward and confronts the driver directly. "You're just a gang lackey, aren't you?" Realizing he's been caught, the guy tries to pull a knife to take Gun-young out. But how could he ever hope to outmaneuver this inspector? Gun-young is a legendary former Marine. Gun-young makes his move. The dealer suddenly swerves the car and takes advantage of the chaos to ditch the vehicle and bolt on foot. Gun-young and Yee-jin stay hot on his heels, chasing him deep into the forest. Gun-young is swearing and yelling until he's out of breath, falling behind. But surprisingly, Yee-jin, with the speed of a pro athlete, barrels past Gun-young to keep the suspect in her sights. By some miracle, the man manages to lose the girl who was frantically chasing him. He hunkers down, hiding behind a grave. When Gun-young finally catches up, he spots the guys but sticking right out. Since there's nowhere left to run, Gun-young tells him to just sit and rest, mostly because Gun-young himself is too winded to even breathe. Even if you're a Marine legend, being forced to hike up a mountain like this is enough to leave Gun-young completely dead tired. But do you think this guy is just going to sit still? No way. He keeps pulling knives out from every possible hiding spot on his body to fight back. Gun-young kicks away more knives than he can count, but the guy just keeps pulling out more. Even though he's a martial arts expert, Gun-young is totally exhausted, and he accidentally takes a slice to the arm. Fortunately, just as he's losing ground, Yee-jin flies in out of nowhere and delivers a kick that sends the guy flying several meters. She immediately restrains him with handcuffs right in front of Gun-young's admiring eyes. But from the very beginning, Gun-young only wanted to have a chat with this guy. What do you think happens when the boss finds out his underling is secretly selling his drugs? No threats were even necessary because Gun-young understands the psychology of these criminals all too well. He offers the guy a way out, but with one condition. Gun-young has only one goal: to personally take down the drug lord himself. With that, he uncuffs the lackey and lets him run off, leaving Yee-jin standing there completely dazed and confused. "This is just a little secret between the two of us, okay?" Hearing Gun-young speak so flirtatiously, Yee-jin has no choice but to go along with it. Meanwhile, Ki-tae has finally finished investigating every single detail of Gun-young's background. However, because Gun-young's record is squeaky clean with no weaknesses, Ki-tae can't make a move yet. On Gunyung's side, it might seem like he's in the dark, but it turns out he's been digging much deeper into this case than anyone realized. Gunyung shows Yi Jin the photo of the drug lord bowing to Kitae, proving that there is a much bigger power pulling the strings behind the boss. What's even scarier is that right inside Gunyung's own investigation room, a mole is working for Kitae. A wrong number phone call serves as a signal for this mole. As soon as a man named Kim receives the message from that strange number, he forces all the staff to head out for lunch, taking advantage of the empty office. Kitae and a few henchmen immediately race over in their cars. They casually start rummaging through all the files and documents related to the case Gunyung's team is investigating. Not only that, but these pros also professionally bug the entire room with listening devices. While searching Gunyung's desk, Kitae discovers the secret photo that was taken of him. As luck would have it, Gunyung didn't go to eat with his colleagues. He returns early, only to find Kitae standing right there in his own office. The guy has the nerve to casually walk up and shake Gunyung's hand. Because of his mysterious identity, Gunyung is immediately suspicious. But to avoid disturbing the grass and startling the snake, he improvises and plays along with him. However, things don't just stop at suspicion. Gunyung has no idea that every single line of his dialogue is being eavesdropped on by Kitae. Every detail of the plan the gang lackey gave to Gunyung has been heard by this villain. Gunyung had his team install bugs in the drug gang's meeting room, but shockingly, Kitae's crew shows up there too. These guys make their move before Gunyung's team can, swooping in to arrest all the criminals themselves. They even toss tear gas canisters at Gunyung's team in the next room, turning the whole scene into pure chaos. Turns out, everything was part of Kitae's master plan. The drug lord was nothing more than a pawn for him to control. Because the drug lord let secrets slip, the big boss shoots him right in the head without hesitation. Then, he hands over command of the criminal underworld to the very same lackey who had been cooperating with Gunyung. Gunyung's team is still standing there in a daze, having no clue how their top-secret plan was leaked. Gunyung suddenly pulls out a signal detector, steps forward, and motions for everyone to stay silent. He pretends to be tidying up the office, only to uncover every single bug hidden by Kitae, before breaking out into a loud, triumphant laugh. GMG is seen walking through the airport, suitcase in hand, carrying a little boy. She feels completely at ease, as if there isn't a single soul lurking in the shadows to threaten her. With a cheerful smile, she picks up her son and leaves the terminal behind. Meanwhile, a man is seen visiting a temple. While the monk is busy chanting prayers, he sneaks down into a mysterious, hidden basement. After fumbling around for a bit, he manages to crack open a safe that is literally overflowing with cash. In the blink of an eye, he stuffs his bag full of money and makes his exit. Outside, Kitae has been waiting in the car for a long time, ready to hit the gas the second he gets the signal. With both the man and the money inside the car, Kitae drives Gukpyeong off to their next appointment immediately to make sure they're on time. On the way, Kitae asks about a certain individual, which clearly rubs Gukpyeong the wrong way. After that, they fall into silence as they head straight toward the city. They arrive at a rendezvous point that, even at a glance, is clearly a gathering spot for high society thugs. Gukpyeong steps out to polish his appearance one last time before entering the secret society. While fixing his hair and applying some foundation, he tells Kitae the story of Sukyoung, a man born into the elite, who graduated at the top of his class at the military academy, and even caught the eye of the president during the revolution. With the backstory finished, the two head inside, where Sukyoung and GMG are deep in conversation. As soon as Gukpyeong and Kitae show up, their conversation is cut short. Sukyoung then leads Gukpyeong outside to discuss some top-secret business, leaving the other two behind, and just like that, a spark begins to fly. In the few minutes their bosses are gone, GMG wastes no time trying to seduce Kitae. However, Kitae is a man of iron self-control. When Sukyoung and Gukpyeong return and see the two flirting, Sukyoung finds it very strange. He questions Gukpyeong about Kitae's background and gives him a stern warning to keep a close eye on this guy, because Sukyoung can tell Kitae is no amateur. Later on, GMG heads to a church. She has no idea that every single one of her moves is being watched by Kitae from a high vantage point. Back in his room, he asks Gukpyeong about the notebook she was carrying. Turns out that's a hit list of every man she's ever robbed. Gukpyeong then starts badmouthing GMG to Kitae, telling him to stay alert and not forget the heavy responsibility he carries on his shoulders. Later, Kitae goes to meet GMG. After talking for a while, she starts asking questions about the notebook and who her child's biological father really is. This hits Kitae's curiosity like an invisible bullet. Once they've walked far enough away from the car, they begin sharing classified information regarding the power dynamics of Sukyoung and Gukpyeong. Not only that, But GMG even offers to help him if he truly wants to get his hands on her dark black book. Right after that, Kitei asks her about a Japanese Yakuza member that she seems to know. After GMG provides the information, he realizes he's found a crucial link in the puzzle of his life. That intel alone is more than enough for one conversation. Before saying goodbye, GMG doesn't miss the chance to throw a few more flirty lines at Kitei before hopping into her car and driving off. Meanwhile, the female officer Yi-jin has transformed into a kind-hearted seamstress to get close to Kitei's sister. Because she acts so friendly, the undercover cop easily wins over So-young's trust. Without a single suspicion, So-young begins telling the seamstress everything about her brother and their entire family. From that encounter, Yi-jin secures even more intel to bring back to Inspector Jeon-young. After regrouping, the entire team meticulously analyzes and investigates every single link they've gathered. With his razor-sharp instincts, the inspector seems to have already anticipated a move that Kitei likely never saw coming. As Jeon-young takes a sip of his tea and flashes a winner's smirk, a master plan is already brewing in his mind. Meanwhile, following Kitei's request for help, GMG takes him to meet Yuji. She is currently a powerful queen pin of the underworld, with massive wealth and authority at her fingertips. When she comes face to face with these two old acquaintances, Yuji greets them with a surprisingly sweet and innocent smile. She then invites them to sit down for a private talk. Noticing that Kitei seems to have the same hunger for money as she does, Yuji pulls him aside to discuss a secret plan. If you fail to reach your goal again, I'm afraid you'll have to pay the price, especially for wasting my time. Her words are both a business proposal and a chilling warning to Kitei regarding their upcoming operation. Accepting the challenge, Kitei takes his glass and sits beside Yuji to strike a deal. But just as he begins to hint at a long-term partnership, GMG cuts them off. Later, at the Busan Citizens Day event, Inspector Jeon-young is also present, blending into the buffet party filled with the wealthy elite. The person he targets for his initial move is none other than Guk Pyong. The two end up peeling shrimp together while chatting about drug cases involving high-profile criminals. That simple interaction is enough to bridge the gap between them and lower Guk Pyong's guard. Immediately after finishing the meal, Jeon-young rushes down to meet Yi-jin to report the situation. Together, they piece together and analyze the information Jeon-young just extracted. Ultimately, the duo reaches the same conclusion. Kitei is likely using Guk Pyong as a cover to smuggle drugs out of the country. That night, after returning home, Kitei has a heart-to-heart with his younger sister. He tells her that everything he does is for the sake of the family and to secure a massive fortune for the three siblings' future. Not only that, but he even asks his sister to join him in a heist that could change their entire family's destiny. The very next morning, Kitei meets with his partners. His first priority is finding a warehouse that is both large enough and sufficiently discreet. Furthermore, he demands that his product must dominate the Japanese market with the highest quality and purity possible. And just like that, Kitei's earth-shattering project is officially underway. He coordinates flawlessly with his team to stay under the government's radar while producing high-quality goods for the market. Kitei successfully deceives the authorities about the dark business he's running. He even manages to pull the wool over his boss Guk Pyong's eyes. While sitting with Guk Pyong, Kitei recounts his trip to Japan with GMG, but he only scratches the surface, keeping his private meeting with Yuji a total secret. However, as soon as Kitei leaves, Guk Pyong calls in his most trusted henchman to hear the unfiltered truth. He learns that Kitei has actually teamed up with Yuji and has already expanded his drug production process. Hearing this is more than enough to send Guk Pyong into a blind rage. Later, while Kitei is taking GMG to church to seek forgiveness, he suddenly receives a call from Guk Pyong. The boss tells him that he will be inspecting Seoul National University soon and that the person will be arriving there. After hanging up, Kitei frantically searches for GMG, but it's too late. She has already left in a car without him knowing, and right now she is sitting there, having a conversation with the president. Knowing that the president and Sukyoung are sworn enemies who cannot coexist under the same sky, GMG decides to play her hand and reveal her true plan. Having a child has only made her more ambitious. She strikes a deal with the president. A win-win situation where he can finally take down his rival, and in exchange, she gains the wealth and status she craves. Immediately after she meets with the president, Kitei invites her to a bar that same night for a private conversation. The fact that he made the first move makes her ecstatic, and she shows up at the bar in no time. But as soon as they meet, Kitei starts threatening her for what she's been up to. He advises her to hand over her notebook and disappear if she wants to keep her life. Despite his cold threats, GMG remains completely unfazed. She then drops a bombshell, admitting to Kitei that the notebook never even existed. Having confessed, GMG begins to tremble, begging Kitei for his help. The The atmosphere shifts from intense to romantic. She thinks she's about to have a steamy night with Kite, but when she steps out of the shower, she realizes she celebrated too soon. Kite is nowhere to be found, leaving GMG to break down in tears. It was the first time she had been played like that. She quietly changes her clothes and has her driver take her home. On the road, just when she thinks the night is over, disaster strikes. A mysterious convoy blocks her car. The person who steps out in front of her is none other than Kite. He holds a gun in his hand and points the barrel directly at her, leaving her completely stunned. Meanwhile, the brutal reality of war has left behind a trail of immense suffering. You'd think the front lines were a living hell, but those back home are suffering just as much, even thousands of miles away from the bombs. Their lives are being squeezed dry, working day and night just to meet the demands of the war effort. And in the shadows, drugs are creeping in, tearing families apart even further. Nothing is more heart-wrenching than a little boy waiting desperately for his father to return from the front. The strong father who was once the boy's pride has returned, but he's brought back a terrifying sickness. Whenever he runs out of his medicine, he goes into a violent rage, screaming and destroying everything in sight. These are men who gave their lives for their country, only to be locked up by that same country because of their drug addiction. Gun-young is one of those deeply affected by this damn substance. Every day, he has to care for the father he was once so proud of. The old man now lives like a ghost, his mind completely gone. He doesn't even remember that he was the one who committed a murder, yet he still has the nerve to shout and curse. Life was already hard enough, and now Gun-young has to care for a man like this. This is the same younger sister Gun-young carried out of the crime scene years ago after their father killed their mother. Now, she is struggling with grueling labor at a factory. Gun-young can only spare a moment to visit his family before he must return to his mission, seeking justice for the people of South Korea. He is the one standing at the center of the courtroom. With a calm but firm voice, he highlights every single atrocity committed by the two Americans who stole the lives of a little girl's parents. He declares that these crimes deserve nothing less than the death penalty. As he speaks, the people in the courtroom erupt in cheers. These arrogant Americans still have no idea what Gun-young is saying. They actually think they're only going to get 5 years in prison. Little do they know, Gun-young didn't give a damn about his corrupt superiors. He's making sure they pay the ultimate price. The boss had explicitly ordered him to go easy on the Americans. But instead, Gun-young threw the book at them, handing down the maximum sentence. This sends Kite's boss into a total blood-boiling rage. His fury stems from the fact that this trial directly interferes with his own corrupt business interests. He starts taking his anger out on Kite, berating him without mercy. Kite puts on an act, groveling and begging the boss to let him stay on the job. Seeing an easy way to line his pockets, the boss licks his lips. He demands 300 million won every month, then greedily tacks on an extra 100 million just to spare Kite's life. This leaves Kite fuming, and he goes straight to confront that pointy-mouthed snitch who ratted him out. That guy is nothing more than a puppet, a mole planted to keep an eye on Kite's every move. Dealing with both internal infighting and external threats is enough to give anyone a massive headache. But Kite's ultimate goal is something much bigger. He's willing to swallow his pride and literally drop to his knees just to infiltrate deeper into the inner circle of these kingpins. Meanwhile, Gun-young isn't resting for a single second. He's constantly on the move, diving deeper into the investigation of the drug underworld. Gun-young has successfully planted an underling to act as his eyes and ears inside the organization. But ever since this guy got lucky and landed the seat as Hwang's puppet gang leader, he's become incredibly arrogant, treating Gun-young like he's nobody. Gun-young decides it's time to remind him who's actually running the show. With a few well-placed strikes, Gun-young forces his henchmen to submit, making it clear that if he wants to stay alive, he follows orders. That night, Gun-young sets up a private meeting with Kite for a few drinks. This is more than just a small chat between two guys in the same line of work. They are both aggressively scouting for information from the other side. Beck, I don't care if the KCIA is pulling the strings behind this, Gun-young says. It seems Gun-young is fully aware that Kite has his hands dirty in this case. Since both men are guarding their own secrets like life and death, neither one fully understands the other's true endgame. Gun-young leaves him with a chilling warning. He's going to personally dismantle this entire drug ring. The next morning, Gun-young meets up with Dae-il. It turns out a few punches were exactly what he needed because he's now perfectly obedient. He spills everything, the exact time and location of the next big transaction. Armed with this intel, Gun-young gives him a satisfied pat on the shoulder. That same evening, Gun-young and his team rush to finalize their plan. The multi-talented Yi-jin, who happens to be fluent in Japanese, is assigned to book the hotels in Japan. Meanwhile, Kim is tasked with digging up intelligence on the local gangs there. Word of this massive drug deal eventually reaches Huang's ears. Even though Kite is heading the operation, Huang still assigns one of his most trusted henchmen to follow him. He clearly senses that Kite is up to something shady. However, because Kite had bugged Huang's own office, he's already one step ahead and knows exactly what's coming, allowing him to move with extreme caution. Finally, the day of the deal arrives. Yijin performs, frantically explaining that she accidentally booked the wrong hotel. The next morning, Kite arrives early for a meeting with the daughter of a Japanese Yakuza boss. Yijin and Gunyang are positioned nearby, snapping photos as Kite coolly walks inside. Right beneath a bustling seafood market lies a massive, hidden drug factory. Gunyang and Yijin manage to sneak inside to scout the situation. But the transaction happens lightning fast, and Kite emerges shortly after. Later, a boat carrying Kite and a massive haul of cash is making its way back to the mainland. While he's sitting there counting the money, the door suddenly swings open. It's Hak-Soo, and he's walking in with a gun hidden behind his back. As the two men sit there, talking about all the things they could do with this mountain of cash, the atmosphere suddenly shifts. A gun is pointed straight at Kite. From the pier, Inspector Jianyang and his team have been watching the whole scene unfold from start to finish. Jianyang reaches a chilling conclusion. The KCIA is moving massive amounts of drugs with professional precision. Once he sees Hak-Soo get off the ship and step onto the harbor, Jianyang orders his squad to move in and begin the operation. But just when things seem like they're going to be easy for the inspector, Guk Pyong suddenly appears out of nowhere. That alone is enough to force Jianyang to pull the plug on the investigation for the moment. Immediately, Jianyang orders his team to pivot their investigation. The top priority now is to tail Guk Pyong and see exactly what he plans to do with that massive amount of money. Guk Pyong and Hak-Soo's car speeds off toward a nearby temple, completely unaware that Inspector Jianyang is sticking to them like glue every step of the way. Stepping out of the car with 2 bags of money, Hak-Soo hesitates for a split second before handing them over to Guk Pyong. It's like a hidden, silent signal. But the director is so blinded by the money that he doesn't notice a thing. Lugging the 2 huge bags of cash, Guk Pyong stands before a Buddha statue before heading down to his familiar secret basement. As he fumbles with the safe to store his loot, Kite suddenly appears right behind him. It turns out he wasn't executed at all. Instead, he managed to bribe Hak-Soo, and they've teamed up to rebel. To the thumping rhythm of the festival drums playing outside the temple, a brutal fight breaks out between the two. Guk Pyong is completely outmatched and ends up taking a knife straight to the stomach. Inspector Jianyang finally makes his way deep into the cellar, and the bloody scene before him leaves him in absolute shock. For a moment, Jianyang and Kite are face to face, but unfortunately, one is standing in the shadows with a gun aimed straight at the other, while the person in the light can't see into the dark corners. Kite manages to slip away with the stack of cash without having to fire a single shot. The moment Inspector Jianyang runs back outside to call for backup is the same moment Kite personally sets the temple ablaze to destroy all the evidence. Having failed to save anyone, Jianyang can only stand there in silence, watching the temple go up in flames with a feeling of absolute, crushing helplessness. Jianyang is 100% certain that Kite is the one who took out Huang. But right now, the trail has gone cold, and there isn't a shred of physical evidence. Not one to back down, Jianyang shifts his strategy to target Kite's colleague from the Intelligence Bureau, Guk Pyong. Without wasting any time, he hauls Guk Pyong in on suspicion of murdering Huang. During the interrogation, Guk Pyong puts on a straight face and lies through his teeth, claiming he knows absolutely nothing. As the hours drag on, Jianyang changes his tactics, psychologically poking at him. He reminds Guk Pyong that even if he stays silent until his dying breath, it won't matter, because in the current situation, Kite is the only one winning. While Guk Pyong rots as a murder suspect, Kite is out there living scot-free. Hearing this, Guk Pyong's resolve actually starts to waver. But just as he's about to crack, a sudden order comes down from the higher-ups to release Guk Pyong immediately. A furious Jianyang storms into his boss's office, only to be told helplessly that the order to let Guk Pyong go came directly from the very top. The high-level figure Jianyang's boss mentioned is Suk-Yung, a man who is incredibly close to the president. As it turns out, Kite had already met with Suk-Yung, bringing along a table literally piled high with cash. This was the massive kickback money that Huang had been secretly embezzling right under Suk-Yung's nose. But Kite didn't just bring money, he also handed over a notebook. It was the secret black book he found in GMG's bag after he killed her. Inside were the names of every high-profile man she had ever been involved with, including Suk-Yung himself. Using a mix of threats and high-stakes persuasion, Kite pitches his plan to take over Huang's position, asking Suk-Yung to hand him even bigger deals. He confidently promises he can rake in hundreds of billions for both Suk-Yung and the president. Seeing Kitae's raw ambition and undeniable talent, Sukyung bites, granting Kitae even more power than he had before. It was thanks to this corrupt alliance that Gukpyeong was set free. Once out, Gukpyeong assures Kitae that he didn't breathe a word to Jeon-young about the murder of Hwang, nor did he mention it to Sukyung. The problem is, Jeon-young's deep understanding of the situation makes Kitae realize one thing. There is definitely a mole leaking information from inside the Central Intelligence Bureau. With his sharp instincts, Kitae immediately suspects the gang's vice captain. That night, he heads to the factory for a chat with him. During the conversation, Kitae casually but menacingly loads his pistol and points it directly at the vice captain's chest. He grills him, demanding to know if he's been colluding with Jeon-young and selling him out. The vice captain tries his best to hide his mounting panic, telling Kitae that if he doesn't trust him, he should just go ahead and pull the trigger. After surviving that interrogation, the vice captain meets with Jeon-young again. He warns him that things have become way too dangerous and that this is the last time he can help. He hopes that this time, Jeon-young can finally take Kitae down for good so that he can finally stop looking over his shoulder. Based on the intel provided by the mole, Jeon-young quickly organizes a massive sting operation, splitting his subordinates into two teams. One group sets an ambush at sea to intercept the drug shipment, while the other group raids the pharmaceutical factory. However, the result is a total nightmare for Jeon-young. When they bust open the crates on the ship and in the factory, they don't find drugs. All they find are ordinary goods like cigarettes. Jeon-young gets a rude awakening as he realizes he's been played like a fiddle by the vice captain. It turns out of a pure, desperate fear for his own life, the vice captain confessed his betrayal to Kitae. Contacting Jeon-young was nothing more than a setup to redeem himself in Kitae's eyes. While Jeon-young returns empty-handed, Kitae decides not to punish the vice captain for his initial betrayal, telling him to lie low and leave the factory until the heat dies down. Fuming, Jeon-young vows to track the guy down, ordering his team to stake out every transit station. But right at this critical moment, the internal affairs inspectors storm into his office. They claim to have received a tip that someone on Jeon-young's prosecution team has been reselling confiscated drugs. Jeon-young knows instantly, this is a classic frame-up orchestrated by his rivals to take him off the board. To protect his team, Jeon-young confronts his superior. The boss warns him to show some restraint and stop acting so recklessly. He points out that the Kitae of today isn't the man he used to be. He now has the powerful Sukyung backing him up. But Jeon-young doesn't flinch. He points to the 8 large characters hanging on the wall. Uphold principles. Stay on the righteous path. As a prosecutor for the people, he vows he'd rather die than forget his mission. After so many failures, Jeon-young realizes he needs a new angle. He decides to strike Kitae's one true weakness, his younger brother, Ki-hyun. Ki-hyun is currently serving in the military and has recently found himself in the middle of a massive scandal. A bullied soldier reached his breaking point, snuck into the barracks, and gunned down every superior who had tormented him. Investigators swarm the base, and the first person they target is Ki-hyun. Why? Because Ki-hyun testified that the lieutenant had flat out denied the soldier's request for a transfer. If that's true, the lieutenant is legally responsible for the tragedy. The investigators remind Ki-hyun that the lieutenant comes from an incredibly powerful family with serious political backing. They're basically telling him to take the fall and be the scapegoat. However, just like his brother Kitae, Ki-hyun isn't someone you can just push around. He looks the investigators in the eye and tells them that if they try to make him the sacrificial lamb, he's going to drag everyone else down with him. He refuses to let anyone destroy his future. Jeon-young eventually meets Ki-hyun, laying out exactly how deep his brother and sister are in the drug trade. He hopes Ki-hyun will convince their sister, So-young, to turn herself in. But Ki-hyun is incredibly sharp. He deduces that Jeon-young is only talking to him because he lacks real evidence and needs a breakthrough. He refuses to betray his family. It doesn't take long for Kitae to find out what's happening to his brother in the military. To fix the problem, Kitae storms into the barracks and, without saying a single word, brutally beats Ki-hyun's superior to a pulp. But the younger brother isn't grateful at all. Just like Kitae, Ki-hyun craves power and success, but he wants to earn it through his own hard work and on a legitimate path. Kitae tries to teach him the philosophy of power, that if you don't want to be stepped on, you have to step on everyone else first. Ki-hyun can't stand his brother's twisted logic and reveals his plan to leave for Vietnam. Kitae is dead set against it, wanting his brother to stay on the path he's already paved for him. In response, Ki-hyun hands Jeon-young's business card to Kitae, warning his brother to clean up his own mess first and stop letting his greed ruin their lives. The fact that Jeon-young went after his little brother is the final straw for Kitae. That night, Jeon-young heads out alone. His subordinates wait for hours, but he never returns. At this very moment, Jeon-young is in grave danger, and his life is hanging by a thread. Jeon-young is currently in a life-or-death situation because he's just been kidnapped by Ki-tae, and he's not alone. His sister has been taken right along with him. Ki-tae is planning to pin the murder of the bureau director on Jeon-young, and he's even plotting to frame Jeon-young's sister as a national traitor colluding with North Korea. Word of Jeon-young's abduction quickly reaches Yong Cheol, the president's chief of staff. Now, you have to understand the dynamic here. Yong Cheol and Suk-young, Ki-tae's backer, are both the president's most trusted men. One represents the prosecution system, while the other holds the power of the Namsan Intelligence Bureau. These two sides have always been locked in a shadow war, and the kidnapping of a prosecutor like Jeon-young has pushed things to the breaking point. Yong Cheol gives Suk-young a subtle warning to know when to stop. Suk-young immediately orders Guk-pai to get his man, Ki-tae, under control. Under Suk-young's crushing pressure, Ki-tae has no choice but to release the hostages. But once he's free, Jeon-young isn't just going to let this slide. He decides to take his secret investigation public, vowing a life-and-death showdown with Ki-tae. To go head-to-head with a guy who has a rock-solid shield like Ki-tae, Jeon-young knows he needs the powerful backing of his own. So, under his superior's guidance, Jeon-young goes to meet Yong Cheol. He proposes a brilliant strategy to take down Suk-young, a divide-and-conquer plan. Jeon-young's idea is to first arrest Ki-tae. This move will force Suk-young to sacrifice a pawn to save his own neck. And since a genius like Ki-tae will obviously try to protect himself, a massive conflict will erupt between the two. Just like that, both Suk-young and Ki-tae can be eliminated in one go. Yong Cheol is incredibly impressed with the plan. To test Jeon-young's ultimate loyalty, Yong Cheol takes off his leather shoe, fills it with liquor, and signals for Jeon-young to drink it. Without a single second of hesitation, Jeon-young downs the whole thing. For the sake of the nation's justice, he's willing to swallow his pride. With Yong Cheol now officially backing him, Jeon-young contacts Guk-pai to flip him to his side. He promises that if Guk-pai helps him get the secret tapes Ki-tae recorded of Suk-young's conversations, the director's seat will be his in the future. Guk-pai is sold. His greed for that top spot takes over, and he starts spying on Ki-tae. During this time, Ki-tae travels to Vietnam with Madame Ikeda, the number 2 figure in a Japanese Yakuza syndicate. There, they meet with a smuggler of drug precursors. To establish a stable supply chain, Ki-tae needs a massive amount of raw materials. Back in Busan, Jeon-young tails a trusted henchman from the Manjae gang and discovers he's actually dating Ki-tae's sister, So-young. It turns out the sister had been hiding things from her brother, secretly slipping this guy small amounts of drugs to sell. Seizing the perfect opening, Jeon-young pounces, catching the guy red-handed with the evidence. After the arrest, Jeon-young demands that he snitch on Ki-tae, promising a reduced sentence if he cooperates. In another interrogation room, Assistant Yi-jin is taking a statement from So-young. However, for So-young, her brother is like a father figure who has spent years slaving away to take care of her. Because of that, she refuses to betray Ki-tae even if it costs her her life. Luckily, to protect So-young from taking the fall, the henchman finally talks and gives Jeon-young exactly what he wants. He confesses everything, admitting that Ki-tae is the true mastermind behind the entire drug trafficking ring. Armed with the confession, Jeon-young leads dozens of prosecutors in a massive, high-profile raid on the Busan branch of the Central Intelligence Bureau, arresting every single agent on the premises. That same day, Ki-tae returns from Vietnam. The moment he sets foot in the airport, he's greeted by prosecutors and slapped with handcuffs. Later, in the interrogation room, Jeon-young plays the recorded testimony for him. But even with the evidence staring him right in the face, Ki-tae doesn't even break a sweat. He remains ice-cold, flatly denying every single charge. Jeon-young begins to execute his divide-and-conquer plan as intended. He's betting on the fact that Ki-tae has been bugging Suk-young, and that Guk-pai is currently hunting for those tapes. He believes that once those recordings are handed over to Suk-young, Ki-tae will lose his powerful protection. Meanwhile, news of Ki-tae's arrest spreads like wildfire. Suk-young is starting to get a little nervous. Yong Cheol, on the other hand, gives his subordinates strict orders to take Ki-tae down once and for all. He wants to use this opportunity to completely uproot the Namsan Intelligence Bureau's influence in the Blue House. A short while later, Guk-pai actually finds Ki-tae's secret tapes, but he doesn't hand them over to Yong Cheol. Instead, he brings them straight to Suk-young. As Suk-young listens to the tapes, a massive twist is revealed. The recordings aren't about Suk-young's dark secrets at all. Instead, they contain concrete evidence of Yong Cheol colluding with Chaebol chairman to rig the presidential election. If this evidence reaches the president, Yong Cheol is a dead man walking. Just like that, Suk-young has completely seized control of the entire board. Back in the interrogation room, Ki-tae, who now fully understands that the tide has turned, deliberately taunts Ji-yeon-young. He drops a bombshell secret that Ji-yeon-young never saw coming. Ki-tae knew about Ji-yeon-young's secret meetings with Yong Cheol and Guk Pai from the very beginning. Why? Because Ji-yeon-young's own colleague, a fellow prosecutor, had sold him out. And it gets worse. In the interrogation room next door, this corrupt colleague secretly hides a syringe inside a stack of legal documents. The Manjae gang henchman, unable to control his addiction, grabs the syringe and injects himself. He immediately begins to hallucinate and falls into a deep coma. Once the witness collapses, the prosecutor quietly retrieves the syringe. For Ki-tae, taking out this henchman was the ultimate way to silence the only witness. But Ji-yeon-young's situation is even more tragic. After being outplayed by Ki-tae, he is arrested by his own department on trumped-up charges of bribery. Just like that, Ki-tae has quietly and efficiently dismantled Ji-yeon-young. Under the cover of a dark night, Ki-tae walks out of the prosecution office a free man, pausing only to give Guk Pyong a chilling reminder to never flip-flop his loyalties again. Meanwhile, Ji-yeon-young is framed and smeared as a corrupt prosecutor who was secretly protecting the drug cartels. With Ji-yeon-young's downfall complete, the puppet master Yong Cheol contacts Ji-yeon-young's superior and orders him to be disposed of. To Yong Cheol, a broken sword is nothing but trash to be thrown away. That day, Ji-yeon-young's office is ransacked, and investigators conveniently find planted dirty money. His sister is arrested, and even his elderly father in the nursing home is dragged into the mess. Under the watchful eyes of the public, Ji-yeon-young is handcuffed and hauled away in disgrace. On the flip side, Ki-tae, thanks to his merit in this operation, is now officially in the same boat as Suk-young. In the shadows, So-young continues to help Ki-tae run the pharmaceutical factory. Using their latest high-purity drug, Ki-tae and the Japanese Yakuza establish an unbreakable bond. Suk-young also receives a massive fortune offered up by Ki-tae. From that point on, Ki-tae undergoes a total transformation, being promoted to the director of the Central Intelligence Bureau in Busan. On his inauguration day, Ki-tae leads his agents in an oath under the national flag, swearing loyalty to the country and fighting for the glory of the fatherland. But in that dark era, Ki-tae and his agents all knew the truth. That so-called national honor, that Made in Korea label, was nothing more than a convenient excuse to seize power and satisfy their own darkest desires. Thanks for watching.